Hi, good evening. Welcome once again to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon Show. We also coming to you on YouTube. You could get it there in Guyanese Critic or TBN, Daybreak News, wherever you are, whatever it is that you're doing. Good evening, good morning, good midnight, and season's greetings again. As always, when the topic comes up and we have to talk about justice in Guyana and we have to talk about politics, there's a big linkage. We have known many politicians would have come from after they would have practiced law. We would have seen also lots of debates about the independence of the judiciary, about our ethical behavior of people who are practicing law in Guyana. Do we want to start a debate? Do we want to have a discussion on these topics and more? Tonight we have in our midst somebody who would have spent decades in the practice of law, and among other things, I can't even begin to put my foot or to talk any kind of law with him because he has that kind of institutional knowledge in the political arena as well. Tonight also I want to say good night to my co-host Freddie Kissoon, who took a day and he's back already and he's roaring tonight. I think it's the season, and I hope you guys are taking care of the roadways there. And before I hand you over, it's a crazy couple days, and it's going to get worse over the next couple days. East Bank, and I know the East Coast as well, and so you got to be very careful. Saw that horrific accident on the West Coast. One lady is dead, standing in the corner, and the vehicle came and hit her, the minibus, and several others injured. Please take care, folks. We've been asking, we've been beseeching you, and we cannot afford to lose our most how you say it, our most expensive assets in this country. That's you, the people of Guyana. Good night, Freddie Kissoon. I know he's going to do the honor of introducing this fine gentleman that we have in our midst here.
Good evening. Thank you for watching us. If you're watching us now, wherever you are. I have one thing in common with our guests. We share the same last name. And now we have another thing in common. I'm just going to show you my walking stick. He carries around one like this. Okay?
Oh my goodness.
So we share the same last name, and now we're going to be sharing a style of walking. Now what happened, I believe, when you're in the public realm, you have an obligation to your readership, to the people who view you, listen to you, the people you share knowledge with, the people you have an interaction with. I've been having an interaction with the Guyanese people for over 50 years. And I have an obligation to tell them if I'm leaving, if I'm moving, if I'm going out of the media, etc. So I have an obligation to tell you what happened on Thursday, and in doing that, I would like to express my gratitude to a fine doctor. I went into the Junction Hospital to look at my knees. They were looked at, and instead of going home and resting, I went shopping. And then when I went home, the knee collapsed. The left knee collapsed in terrible pain. And I was rushed to the emergency at Junction Hospital, and Dr. Watson came, the bone specialist, the orthopedic surgeon. Dr. Watson came and spent the entire Thursday afternoon with me, looking after me. I want to express publicly my admiration for this unassuming doctor, Dr. Watson. I think if it wasn't for him and the hours he spent with me, I don't know what would have happened. So I will have to be with this cane for a couple of weeks. Now for our guest. When we started this program, Leonard Gildarie and I decided that with such a young population, we need to present history to them. It may not be the right interpretation, it may not be an ocean of facts, but it's important people offering their interpretations, their analyses, their descriptions of what went on 50, 60, 70 years ago. We should not miss the opportunity of these fantastic actors who are getting on in age. We should not miss the opportunity to record what they saw in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, how they reacted, what was to the history makers in Guyana, what did they say to Jagan, to Burnham, to Rodney, to Martin Carter, to the British governors, to the American officials. What have they said to this country? What have they done the past 56 years? When we do those things here, history is recorded. Our guest this evening is a man who has contributed 50 years to the service of practicing law in Guyana, Jailall Kissoon. But Jailall Kissoon has also dabbled, I withdraw that word, has also been involved and participated in politics at a high voltage level. He was a minister of the government. He served the Hoyt presidency for 7 years, and he also spoke on the Burnham platform, spoke on the platform of a political party in Trinidad, in which he got into trouble in Trinidad and Guyana. We'll talk about all of that. But he is the kind of person tonight that we will ask to bring out the nuances, dimensions, and the world of Guyana in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, right up to 2022. Our guest this evening again is attorney at law and former PNC minister, Jailall Kissoon. Mr. Kissoon, it's a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Now, I want to start with what I read. Obviously, you have to research your guest. And I read you said that you and Burnham, he was prime minister then, had ongoing discussions, but you declined a job. I think you said ministerial position, but I'm being safe to say you rejected employment by him because you didn't want to be a yes man. You want to tell our young viewers?
Before I talk, I love to pray. So bear with me, my friends. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Om Bhurbuha Shva Tatsaviturvarenyam Bharga Devasya Dhimmahi Deyo Yuna Prachodayat. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Amen. Thank you very much indeed.
That was very unique, Mr. Kissoon. That's another dimension added to this program. Now, take our young people and those who are not so young but are interested in history. Take us on a journey with Forbes Burnham.
Let's take Forbes Burnham at the time 1960-61. I was working in the Supreme Court of Registry then, and Dr. Jagan was to pass the budget where he put a said tax or something, and Mr. Digyar came out with the tax. But on the same time, there was a Gildarie report by a British expert on the increase of public servants' pay. Dr. Jagan said he would be bound by that report, but then he commenced meeting at Lenora, not a cent more. As a result, the Civil Service Association called a strike, and there was a strike in the city for a long while. Eventually, it came to a head and there was a resolution. So this is the first part of my experience where the entire registry went on strike in the public service. Then, after that, there was the burning of Georgetown. Mr. Degar and Mr. Burnham, they marched the city, burned the city, and then we had the Win Parry report. There are excerpts in the Win Parry report which says that Dr. Jagan lacks the necessary foresight, the nimbleness of intellect, the necessary foresight to see his plans coming to a lamentable end. Whatever that meant is history, because we have seen, indeed, there was a lamentable end to that course of his politics. On the other hand, from a religious standpoint, in 1954, while the constitution was suspended, a saint came from India at Vaitinan, and he kept a conference or kept puja at the Bar Street Temple. Dr. Jagan was there, and Dr. Jagan stood up to ask him questions. And so the Swami told him, I understand you do not believe in God. If that is so, you will not taste power for 25 years. As fate will have it, you did not taste it for 28 years. These are simple facts that preceded the turmoil of Guyana. Dr. Jagan indeed aroused the consciousness of the people to show the advantages that were taken upon them. Pregnant women had to cross the canals. There were no trains or buses to take them down. As a result, the agitation of him caused Sir Jock Campbell to create great reforms in the sugar industry.
But could we get on, you said you refused employment with Burnham. I suspect from the angle you used, I can't remember.
But that was 1980.
It was if you had offered you a ministry job, but you refused, saying, I suspect I would have been a yes man.
No. Let me be frank with you. It is believed all men are afraid of Burnham. And that's a prejudice and a weakness in their own heart. I want you to understand, I was a clerk and registrar in the Supreme Court when Burnham was a practicing lawyer. The dignity of Burnham in the court, his conduct in the court, should be an example to all generations, except on one occasion when he and the Chief Justice Laku had a bit of skirmish in the court. But he did apologize to him afterwards. I think that's one of the causes why the Chief Justice had to leave Guyana and the famous Chancellor Stobie was appointed Chancellor. That is something else. But I think my friend wanted me to speak of the character of Burnham. To speak of Burnham as a lawyer, a dignified man, and resolute agitator. Hear this. Later on, in my own experience, I'm taking you to 1978-79 referendum, where I met him at my brother's home. My brother was Ramesh Kissoon, a mining engineer who admired Burnham tremendously. Every time he goes up there, he goes to his home and he has a cocktail for him. So I met him. One of my friends told him, you have to excuse me for this sentence. He told us Ram Ram. So this guy, my good friend, he's telling us Indian Ram Ram and the Ramaman in the Ras. That is fair. He said, boy, you too much to me. I'm going to eat all puri and curry. At the end, I told him I want to speak to him. I said, I want to ask you a question. Why is it in 1962, 1960, when Burnham used to speak at parade ground, the crowd is overflowing? Today, when you, Burnham, used to speak, 80 or 100 Tata buses with children from all over the country have to bring the very crowd that voluntarily came at one time.
You told Burnham that?
Of course.
Speaking. Right, continue.
So I said, something has to be wrong with your policy. Indeed, you're a black liberator, and liberator for all oppressed people. But today, the very African descendant executive that you fought for, they filled their James Bond briefcase, go on the plane and said, F. Forbes Zaigan. What is the cause of that? Has to be your policy. Authoritarianism cannot work in Guyana. Fear cannot work. And fear is generated by both parties. One, Dr. Jagan felt that he was cheated quite correctly because Burnham said 33% can't give you power. And so long as Dr. Jagan is there, he will receive power because the Americans would not dethrone him. Simple as that. Because Cuba was the great threat to Guyana. Have regard to the historical episode with Russia trying to...
Okay, but if you told Burnham that in 78, 79, you spoke on his platform in 1980.
I did.
Well, explain that. Is not
I went there to hope to liberalize him. And I spoke on his platform and tell him what it was.
But so
why shouldn't I?
So
I choose the lesser of both evils.
So you got onto Burnham's platform with the intention of pushing him in a certain direction.
Naturally.
And did you succeed?
Well, what do you think Hoyt did after? Why do you think I joined Hoyt as a minister? I aided in the liberalization of this country, and I can tell you how.
That's isn't for 1992?
No, you joined Hoyt in 1985.
I was offered, I spoke at Burnham's inauguration.
Aided the liberation of Guyana from the Burnham period leading to the Hoyt presidency.
I want to let you understand, I spoke at Burnham's inauguration. And that was the time when they said Borders was a toothless poodle, and Lord Aylesbury said the election is rigged. But there was not a time when the election was not rigged. And I want you to understand this. Rigged elections is one facet of Guyana. But you have to understand the famous doctor, the father of the nation, he's a great revolutionary Leninist. Why is it when 33% are lawfully governing you, the Lenin revolution did not come like Cuba? Why? And today we had a dictatorship and what nonsense. I want you all to answer that.
Well, I can answer that, Mr. Kissoon. It is quite simple.
Yes.
You don't make revolution like that in a country so sharply divided by ethnic loyalties. We are not a homogeneous country like Barbados, like Trinidad, like, Iceland, like Morocco. If you start a revolution against Burnham,
with profound respect,
you wouldn't have the two races at each other's throat?
No.
Why?
Why did they not jump at each other's throat under Rodney? And that was the fear of Dr. Jagan and Burnham, that the Indians and the Africans were coming together when they saw what was happening to the state. And Rodney courageously spoke, and he was like the Pied Piper. They all followed him, but not to the sea.
Interested. I listen with interest. I'm interested Mr. Kissoon.
Yes, sir.
I spoke to a lady which is a namesake to Asha Kissoon. I did an interview with her for H&M
Yeah.
Kissoon, and she was giving me the history. But she also mirrored something, and this is an interesting thing, a view of Burnham from a different side. And she says, we built that, I think it's Tacuba Lodge, Ministry of...
That's Jailall Kissoon daughter or Jailall Kissoon
Sorry,
herself?
Jailall Kissoon.
Herself.
Jailall Kissoon. And she said we built that, and then Burnham, we were forced basically to give it to Burnham back. And I said, why do you think he did that? She says, you know, I don't think Burnham staying in that place in Vicenten Road where he was staying is his home there. I think, what's the name of that place again?
Castellani.
Castellani House. He says Burnham didn't want any building to be taller that is going to look into his bedroom. And that to me was interesting. But there were some other things that she said. I'm at liberty to probably talk about it because we did publish an interview on this lady, this Kissoon lady. And she says she seemed to give an impression as this Burnham, the man, the orator, the lawyer. But you cannot separate that from the fact that Guyana know him as a president of Guyana. And it's interesting for me because the question that I want to ask you, sir, as an Indian man, I would want to take some liberties there. Joining Burnham's platform and then later on Hoyt's. How did the family take it? How did you take that? I mean, you were a liberal because you're a lawyer. But was it a problem? Because going forward, I seem to get a problem that the minute that you are of a different race, and this is going to be controversial, I presume, and take some knocks on it, but coming down to 2022, there seems to be very little tolerance, or at least from a couple of sides, when people decided a different race to join a party. Let's say an Indian man go across to the PNC. A lot of people are going to jump down on him. This has been relaxed in the last couple of years. But back in 1980, while they would have been Sridhar Rampal and a couple of others, how did you find it?
I found during that period, regardless what Dr. Jagan did, he could not reach government. And therefore, it requires someone to tell Burnham frontally about his weaknesses and where we are heading. Authoritarian states were the examples for Guyana. All of Dr. Jagan's meeting, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Hungary, East Germany, Russia. Name me a democratic state among those nations. I want you all to tell me that. I heard men shouting, you think Cuba is a democratic state? It's starving. Most communist states starve, don't they? Why we are hypocritical in that and say the authoritarian system cannot work because we suppress the spiritual strength and the glory of that power within the individual to achieve and manifest what they could create in a society.
Mr. Kissoon, we have to move on to a statement you make, but I think there's conceptual cobwebs that have been put over the eyes of people, particularly by pro-American scholars and anti-communist scholars in the 60s. But I just want to interject and then we can move on. It is not true that there was starvation in communist countries. They were authoritarian, the rule of law was corrugated, they didn't observe freedom that people are entitled to. But there were more people starving in Brazil, and there was a greater level of poverty in the United States at the time when communist countries were alive. Now, I'm not batting for communist countries. I would live in a communist country. I think Castro messed up Cuba, and that's why I don't see him as a hero. But just to interject that, but why, we will come back to Jagan. There was a big blow up in Trinidad, in Guyana. You went on the platform of the Liberal Party of Jack Warner, the famous Jack Warner, and you said rum is killing Indian people in Guyana. Rum, do you stand by that, or do you think rum is the nemesis of Indian people?
No, let me tell you, rum is a poem I cited written by Jailall, the poet boy in Canada, at the meeting. And I was not castigating, but I want to tell you this. If you know what rum is eating, the heart of our young men, I want you to understand that. What's the consequence of it? Wife beating, rape, child assault, indiscipline, and laziness comes along. From Monday to Tuesday, you can have Indian laborers. You can. Because they say this weekend is our drinking weekend when we collect. This is the reality of Guyana. And
that was and is the reality of Guyana, you say, Mr. Kissoon? That is the reality of Guyana.
Prevails. It prevails in Guyana. And check the statistics of rum shops in Guyana. That's one. Dr. Balwant Singh used to have a program begging the community that rum will destroy us. Rum will destroy us. If you are a sociologist, you're a psychologist, and you shall check we don't go wrong in the countryside. We don't. And you see 17-year-old lying down the road. And if you hear the English language in the F and S, telling mother telling children. So we do not have the ethos of a cultural development of social graces. There's a deterioration, and we are becoming more materialistic. I think once we have money in our hand, respect dies.
But Mr. Kissoon,
Yes, sir.
would you not, as a former policymaker, that you were standing with President Hoyt and President Boyle?
Yeah.
Is there a correlation between rum drinking and poverty? Did you not maybe want to
Not at all.
And okay, but you did when you made those
I
statements.
come from a hard-working family of 15 children.
Oh. When you made that statement in Trinidad, you got some knocks on the thing, yeah.
Everybody knocked me, but it's a poem I recited, and they say, what is the sad thing against me was, they say I insulted the Prime Minister because she and Mr. Pandey used to drink together. That is how that prejudice came along.
But taking that out of context, you have now taken that out of context.
I am not. I'm giving
you are asserting, if we could just leave the context of the poem, you have now asserted as a psychological, as a sociological outline that rum is extremely harmful to Indian people.
Not Indian, to our society. I don't know what race is. I want you to understand that. And if you want me to speak race, I'm not the man for it.
Well, I know. You were the minister in a black...
Not at all.
So,
I born at Anns Grove. I born at Clonbrook. And you go now in Anns Grove and ask our standard in Anns Grove by the blacks, my African brothers, and go to Beehive, where we are.
But, so what do you want...
Some people can't take it.
I'm at peace and calm with your statement about race.
Yeah.
I don't think someone would just, given the multiracial background you come from, you served a black president. I'm satisfied that you don't. When
I went there, I didn't think I served a black president. I served my country, and I can tell you my achievement in it. One. You want me to tell you?
What?
What I did whilst I was
the minister.
Yes, the minister.
That'd be interesting. I'm interested.
One. Mr. Hoyt, when he came in, the treasury was empty. I joined under Hoyt because I joined under Hoyt to make sure communism do not continue in Guyana. Socialism, oppression, and nationalization. Luckily, when I went to Parliament, I read the Hansard of the nationalization of bauxite and sugar. Without Dr. Jagan, Burnham could not have nationalized. So he gave Burnham the support for 2/3 majority. When really answered, and I'm talking to the Guyanese who love private enterprise, Congress Speaker, do not only nationalize the sugar and the bauxite, nationalize the insurance companies, the banks, and all lands, and get rid of landlordism in Guyana, Mr. Congress Speaker. Burnham said, when you come over the side, you can do all of that. You know of anything that Dr. Jagan nationalized? Good.
Electricity Corporation.
Yes, and you put a tailor to run it. Good. Next to that,
But you
I was going to say,
you're against Chile nationalizing the electricity company?
well, I was young. I do not know the right or wrong of that. It's a Canadian company to
It served us well until it collapsed under Burnham. It served Guyana well.
What of the white man who came and was privatized, and you all had to chase him out? He was sold to
Irish.
English. Yes. You have to face it. Don't go on a line, I want to slaughter this man. Let's balance our blame for the benefit of the society. Balance your blame.
How could
There is no God in
Dr. Jagan was not in power. How could you balance?
in power. He caused nationalization of the sugar. Today, I understand the market is being sold. Yet, the remainder of the sugar industry is accepting billions. Why not sell it? And that was in the Parvatan report, in the commission report launched by Mr. Granger, who screwed up the sugar industry himself. We have to face that fact. What's the reality? If I have thought, I don't know the Indian characteristic in me, if I'm running a business, it cannot pay, I sell it or close it. But why? And that's what was my speech in Parliament, that the nationalized industries are like vampire upon the treasury because they are not making profits, and therefore they must be liquidated.
Would you support the arguments, because it's interesting that you raised that with the sugar industry.
Yeah.
I myself was a little upset when they closed those several estates, Rosal and Albion and so on. But the PPP, in justifying the reopening of some sugar estate after 2020, they're saying that, look, sugar is too big to fail. The amount of money that goes to GRA, the amount of money that it pays to NIS, the amount of other spin-off works that happens in the infrastructure, like what NDIA does,
Right.
It's difficult to just take it out just like that. You're going to cause some shocks. I think that is where the Granger administration ran into problems, because you take this whole chunk of money. I'm not saying that that's justification to hold something, because I understand if somebody is to argue, if the business is not making money, why are you holding on to it? And I understand that. But you can't just do it. You have to wean it off. And I don't...
No, I understand that. You have the Parvatan report, I did not read. But the essence of it is, you are not closing it. If you close it, it has zero value. Therefore, run it and let the people who know sugar, the British, the Australian, the Brazilian, the Indians. Chinese know very little about sugar from what I understand. And I'm saying, you look at the Skeldon factory. And Dr. E. Supersad had advised Dr. Jagan, one of these countries must build a factory at Skeldon. Good. The next effect I understand of the Skeldon factory is 40 tons per hour. And you do not have the land, nobody planted the cane for the consumption of the factory for 3 days. So, I'm not going into the economics of the thing, but look where we are. Look where we are from an economic standpoint. Good. I am not quarreling with anybody. I am speaking as a citizen here. Good.
And an experienced lawyer and a former minister.
Yeah, as a citizen. I'm talking as a citizen. Let's take it more. When Mr. Singh came, millions went back, to make the package, the sugar packaging system to add value added to it. Lo and behold, one morning we read, Emora State will not any longer be packaging. It shall be manufacturing, what have you, I don't know. Now, why I'm a citizen? What is the explanation? Having spent billions, it's closed. Is it that there's a sea of funds of such a nature, or a responsibility to no one? What is it really? When the unfortunate poor that you, Mr. Kissoon, love to speak of, can utilize funds, why the sugar lands were not given to sugar workers? Or let the sugar workers plant the land as co-op as they did at Canal Polder. They closed the factory.
I want to come back to...
But look at it, but look what is happening to our country. You know the amount of land we have in the sugar industry? A minimum of 150,000 acres. What are we getting? And hold on, there's a pressure for food security in Guyana. I thought we will follow the Indian system of cottage industries. As India have said, we have passed through all the various stages from 47 to now in development of India that make us the fifth largest.
I want to bring you to contemporary times because I think given who you are and your background, we need to get your views. I believe, Mr. Kissoon, that the APNU AFC regime went about administering the political economy of Guyana in terribly wrong ways and lost the vote to the electorate.
I agree with you.
Where do you think that government from 2015 to 2020 went wrong? What did they do?
The first thing was the government became too arbitrary. Too many army men who knew nothing about development, in my view, who retired, were made personnel in the government. When someone went and told the president, you have captured the cross-section of the country, why not build on that? They said, and this is a former minister of high standing, he grinned. You know what the guy told him? You believe that the army and police will put you back in power, but you're mistaken. So, I am surprised. Imagine a president going to BV, telling the people, you must sell plantain chips. Why didn't you tell them where to get the plantain? Go and plant the land at BV and triumph, and I will give you support to develop the lands. Where will you get the plantain to make the chip? So we have a cockeyed system. We do not wish to frankly, and what you know something about Guyana? Guyana has a permeation of fear. Don't mind men who boast and the Indians like pork. You hold them under the water, they're there, but don't release it, it jumps above the water. They are resilient, they endure suffering. When others are sleeping, they are in the mud, with tractors. You see, 3 tractors turn over already, 1 mic, good. That is an effort. I know what they say? I feel I'll try again. It is not falling down is a problem, is failing to get up. And when you walk, if you travel from Vredenhoek to Perica, and you travel, it is not government who gives those people that. It's their self-effort resolution, saving, and wisely conducting their financial affairs. They do not, entertainment for them, their home is their club, their temple, and their sport yard. You must check them. That's where they have their liquor, that's where they have their food, they kill their duck and eat it. That's their club. But next morning, the tractor is in mud. So when you see them, or look at them people like a big fat man, oh God, Jaggi will help them. Nothing of the kind. And let me tell you this sadness. There are men who renting land, thousands of acres, to plant rice, Manu Ramnares at Maikoni. And yet, the government cannot find it fit to give that man 10,000 acres to plant. He has that capacity. Why foreigners? You name Mr. Kissoon, an Indian or an African, where the government gives 2,000 acres to plant, of any crop. Let's check our foreign friends. They have our gold mine. Do they pay taxes? No. Check our Chinese friends. Powerful men. But check your parallel. You, the native who speak for them. For the Africans and the Indians, what do they get from the territory where they were slaves and indentured? What do they have? Do they own any of them? Any land to that extent? And above all, some of us get 100,000 acres. The tragedy is, why don't give these people title to land rather than give them 30-year lease and 50-year lease, so they can take it to the bank for long-term loan for development, not only the planting the crop, but also of creating industries of value added.
And that is interesting that you would raise those things, because I think we had a guest a few weeks back.
No, we are blind to a reality in this country.
We would have had a guest a few weeks back who was saying that, the reasons why there are poverty in pockets of our communities, maybe from one race against the other, and that we need to do some studies to really determine, scientific studies to determine that. But you have raised an interesting thing. Going forward, in 2020 we saw some interesting thing with the elections. With the elections
in
Guyana. The elections, it went, there was some actions in the High Court. Mm-hmm. And when it went to the Court of Appeal, we saw 3 judges there, and a couple of them went one way.
With the 64, okay, let's go through that.
Let's talk about that. My question to
you go on mathematics.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
Hold on. I will answer that.
Yeah. You didn't hear
there's a legal opinion that was said that 34 is the half of that number. Mm-hmm. Good. I disagree with that from the start. But that's a legal opinion that went and tested. And above all, let's take the Constitution, where it was being argued that 2 years is not the limit. Let's argue that. One doesn't know mathematics.
2 years not the limit for what? What are you talking about?
For extension of you can have more than 2 terms. So what? Even as those lawyers or judges...
No, one court said that acting Chief Justice Chang ruled that you can go beyond the 2 terms.
Yes.
That was lost in the Court of Appeal, reversed that, and then there was an appeal to the CCJ.
No, that was upheld.
It was upheld in
the
and the CCJ
knocked them down. So one does not know literature and the other does not know mathematics. So what we have? So where is our prejudice in this politics? One wants 3 terms. Chang does know having the comprehension, and I don't want to talk about Chang.
Talk about Chang, he can't sue you, he's dead. This is the recording of history. I believe libel stifles the writing of autobiography. But we have the privilege of recording history without being damnified by the court. So
I'm not afraid of libel.
but he can, they can sue.
I want
You're
to-
a very competent lawyer.
No, not my competence. I respect the dead.
Oh.
But I want
And
to...
if they do bad things,
Hold on, let's come to the
Bonham
judicial.
did bad things here, and Jagan, you talked about it.
I will talk about both.
But we're talking
None of
about
them. Well, here it is.
That was-
None of the election hustings by the PPP or the PNC ever speak of Hoyt. How is that? Only, my friend Ravi, they only speak of Burnham, but nobody speak of Hoyt. Hoyt has liberalized this country.
Yes, I think he is.
Denationalized the industries which Burnham took. Liberalized Guyana. I aided the thawing of the relationship between Guyana and the United States through the famous ambassador, Clint Lauderdale. Let that be
That
put.
time you were minister, right?
I was minister. So when I was minister, I told, I passed around North Korean society, Russian society, Chinese Friendship Society. I told myself, why not American Friendship Society? And I went around the president and said, Mr. President, I want to form a
Guyana America
America.
Friendship Society.
Mr. Kissoon,
He said, the Constitution guy. He said, you know, you're a minister. I said, oh, I made a mistake. Some people approached me. So,
Oh, so he didn't accept.
he accepted me, but
He didn't accept.
I
I don't think it should have come from a minister.
no, but I still went to fight in the name of what is myself and Richard Ishmael.
Went and formed what?
The
Partner.
Gasaska. And Mr. Harold Davis became the first president.
What's it called?
Gasaska, Guyana Scientific Education Society.
You formed that.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And from then on, Mr. George Bush, Honorable George Bush, President of the, sent for representative to go to the security of in Jamaica. They had a conference. Mr. Ragubi went. Mr. Holt went to the United States in 1988. Check his speech to the Washington guy, the people in Washington. Guyana has resources, but does not have money to develop it. We need investors.
You would say then you were one of the main forces pushing Hoyt in the direction he went into. You would say that?
I believe he
So he
had that
trusted you and-
intention, but he placed his card to his chest. He don't talk until when he keep. I am the man who agitated. I don't want to talk ego. At the
No, but record history for us.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lord.
I moved for our to come back in Guyana. And Mr. Siswan said over his dead body, I said, I don't care, I understand his democratic place to talk, whether he come back or not. As fate would have it.
This was at a meeting in Sister
The Congress,
The
1986.
there's an interesting thing. I can't remember. Dr. Yog Mahadi and myself interviewed a former leader within the Caribbean who says he also played. I'm trying to remember his name.
Mitchell of St. Vincent.
I'm going to ask you, but he played a role and he spoke about the flower thing. I'm not sure if your paths crossed.
Mitchell.
I think it was.
Yeah.
But
And why, when the night to make the presentation was done at Coffee Square, I never knew that would happen. And Mr. Seston coming to me, I don't know why, talking to me often, but he knew what was coming because he had a copy of the speech. And when the president made the announcement, he has given direction that the mill be cleared and the amount of women who want to kiss him up was a liberation for Guyana. It was believed roti is the thing, but our African brothers eat bread and they don't understand that.
interesting.
And the flower came back, and from then, license was gradually removed, and the country became free. Hoyt is the man. And you know something, why Hoyt didn't join Jagan in the continuation or that
The talks.
the
Yeah,
talk.
yeah.
He was afraid that Jagan would have continued Burnham's program. He was afraid of that. And then Miss Viola Burnham will tell my friend, Ivis Dean, Mr. Kissoon and Hoyt breaking down all the pillars of socialism in Guyana, so carefully built by her husband.
Mr. Kissoon,
Yes, sir.
going forward, we've discovered oil. We are moving to become a modern country. How
I want to
confident are you?
understand. Let me pause there. Oil need not make us a modern country.
Thank you very much for that.
Good.
How confident are you that our judiciary, our court system is ready to meet this modern country that we're talking about? What needs to be done?
Let me give you my sorrow. I understand the Attorney General went to Barbados and he spoke at a meeting saying Burnham put puppets in the Court of Appeal and the judiciary. Mr.
You ought to be
Ramprasad.
careful with that statement, Mr. Kissoon. You don't know if Mr. Nandala said that. Yeah.
No, he said so in Barbados. It was a conference.
I think there's a great respect for the judiciary.
Hold on, it's not the judiciary. What people, hold on. Nobody wants to cease to tarnish Burnham. What I want to
Okay.
But his alliances make us fearful. Burnham said, independence means independence. We shall not be a minion of Moscow, but a mendicant of Washington.
But
When Burnham died, all the resources of Guyana was intact. All. So much so with home oil. When they discover oil, what they call is sweet oil, Burnham said 49%. They went and blow up all the machinery and so. But that's the man we're dealing with. The resources of Guyana was intact. The first industry that came here is Oman. I'm not praising Burnham.
No, you are. But Mr. Kissoon,
No, I'm not finished. He
Mr.
has a
Kissoon.
question before the table
Yeah.
about the independence
Oh, the
and where we need our courts.
Let me go to the history of the judiciary that I know, because I was a
But we
prosecutor.
don't have enough time for that. But
I was a
where do-
prosecutor
where
for
do we
8
need to go?
years. And let me tell you this. For men to damnify our court of appeal under Burnham is a sin.
no, Mr. Kissoon.
What?
Mr. Burnham tampered with the judiciary.
In which case?
I can tell you what.
Which case?
Oh, come on, mister.
Tell me the case.
There was a case with Justice Ramon who told me personally that Burnham called him and said he wants Dr. Jagan's brother Derek to be convicted of taking money out of the
That's a
country.
lie. And I'm telling you, I saved Derek. I went, Mr. Sesnorine wanted Derek jailed. And I'm telling you forcefully that. Derek came to me in 1980 something. Talk to Burnham. I said, but you say I'm a PNC and you're costing me up. I went to Burnham. You know what Burnham told me? I said, you want to help your friend Derek? You remember Derek used to go in your office and give you information. You want to help him? You know what he said? That Jagan costs up the speaker. I said, but Dr. Jagan costs the speaker, but not Derek. So the next stage is, he said, he said, ask Derek if at a cocktail party I did not have on my collar a diamond on a tiger tooth on one and on the other, and his wife Roshan took it out, and I give her the other one. Ask Derek if he remembers that. And I went and gave it to him. You know who convicted Derek? Board Smith, the friend of Seth Lorraine. And then he appealed, and my friend, and Nandran's friend, Mr. Agar, said, the money was never put to be sent out. The money was brought in by Mr. Singh. And Agar, the lawyer, gave that evidence. The full court loose, Derek. Burnham had died. So that distorted information. I know Ramon more than you know, son.
So
I know John Ramon more than you.
saying that-
John Ramon was the softest judge in the judiciary. He don't believe in finding people guilty. And your
No, but
son,
let's
I am telling you about it, so don't touch that.
um,
I'm telling you that.
I thought Mr. Nandalal had made that statement in recent times, but if he said,
it's recent.
making the statement, I thought the reference was recent times. But if Mr. Nandalal said Nandalal said Mr. Burnham tampered with the
He
judiciary,
didn't say that. I had to prefer him say that. But let's take the
what he
let's
said,
take
Burnham imposed.
no puppets.
you
Tantamount to that.
But do you
Do you
know,
think- hold on.
Do you know Mr.
What?
Justice Aubrey Bishop, Chancellor Bishop,
Yeah.
and Rudolph Harper and Crane, Justice Crane, had made rulings that law must now be,
No, only Crane said so, in accordance with government policy.
social. Yeah.
Crane said so,
Yeah,
but that never happened because Keith Messiah upturned the case with the sugar. I forget the name of the case. Keith, the strongest judges in that court. He checked his daughter, Justice George, Chancellor. Keith Messiah, up to now, Mr. Nandalal reciting his cases with the music of his words. An objective citizen. Don't tarnish people. Look at it objectively and analyze your nation. Color does not matter in Guyana. Quality matter, integrity matter, learning matters, decency matter.
But you're batting for Mr. Burnham.
You vex with that. I'm not
No,
backing
no,
him.
no.
I'm
Not
saying,
backing.
I'm saying one was a rigger. I'm saying that.
Okay.
And he told me that. But hold on. Other than rigging election,
He killed Walter Rodney.
eh?
He killed Walter Rodney. He murdered Walter. He assassinated
Well,
Walter Rodney.
do you know it is alleged that Rodney was going by revolution also to kill him? Do you know that?
Well, I believe Rodney was involved in the.
That was the plan to
overthrow
kill
of
him.
government.
And I don't want to tell you who betrayed Rodney. A man you all adore.
No. I do not adore the people who were part of
No, I
Rodney's
will-
circle. I don't know. So
No.
you could say once adored. Once adored. But I believe those people are betrayed.
Rodney was going by revolutionary means to destroy this country.
The person who betrayed Rodney that you're saying now, he's still alive?
I'm not going to answer. I will tell you that on a different occasion.
Unfortunately, we got about 2 more minutes.
Yes, sir. You said you had a question.
Mr. Kissoon, sorry. I just don't know. Freddie had me a little thing there because
Okay.
when you're talking his institutional knowledge, your institutional
I'm
knowledge. Just good.
We have the judiciary.
Yes. Very quickly. Very quick.
To be frank, our judiciary needs one, education, needs character, and it needs a positive attitude towards the law. Some of us say, let me help this one. You don't do that. Law must be given in concord with the evidence before you.
Thank you very much.
I want you to understand that.
He has a question.
And damn the consequences. Let the judge do his best. And if he shut it down, let it be.
But
That is character, that is strength.
You know the Court of Appeal ruled that Church of
Which one?
Guyana Court of
Oh, I'm sorry for what Guyana could do.
Church of
Hold on.
before his. Tell us your point.
I'm not going to tell you.
Interesting. Freddie, very quickly.
Under whose regime they were appointed?
No, I quickly my comments. I think I have learned, and I'm sure Gildarie, who is much younger than me, and who's much younger than you, have learned tonight. But I wish we could have more of your frankness in relation to who betrayed Rodney and what you thought of.
No, forget Rodney. Rodney dead and gone. He's celebrated as a martyr, a learned historian. What does it matter?
Bonham should not have assassinated him.
Whether he assassinated or not, Bonham is dead also.
Okay, Gildarie.
But they were saying, you know, he's picking up play with fire.
Watching over the.
If picking up play with fire go Bonham.
You can't.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching over the last hour, it would have been a very good learning experience. But the lesson for me personally, as Freddie would say, as the youngest man in the room, would be I've always yearned for this country to have outspoken people who are not afraid to give their opinions on things. And history being what it is, we should not be afraid to go back and say that, you know, in the case of Mr. Kissoon here, he's given us very frank observations of men who played important parts in our history, whether it's Burnham, whether it's Cherry. These are the kind of tolerance. These are the kind of tolerance that we should have in this country, kind of maturity that we'd want to push, to facilitate as we go forward. I've always said it, that tolerance would be one thing that is going to help us build. Mr. Kissoon talk about character, and this Mr. Kissoon in the middle here I'm talking about. Talk about character. These are the kind of things that we should be building, instilling in our people, in our young people as we go forward. These are things that we have to be passionate about the essence of our people, about the character of our people. I don't like to repeat myself, but it is what it is. I want to
make a remark.
Very quickly, sir, yes.
I want to say, I, with my entire family, community, at Beehive, Clonbrook, Ansgrove, and East Coast, send our great sorrow of the attempt to enter State House, what man cannot do by persuasion, they wish to do through the barrel of a gun. That must never be condoned. Some people believe, and let me make this statement to our people, that Indians are weak, and therefore our African brothers can walk upon them. Let me quote Bonham again, what he told his Home Affairs Minister. He said, Minister, I want to tell you this, do not arouse the wrath of the Indians, because you will not be able to contain the blood they will shed.
Now be careful with some of those statements.
Well, I'm telling you what he said.
No, you got to
No, but we must not. We must live in our country by persuasion and contradiction of policies and alternative policies for the improvement. Imagine 83,000 schools. Poverty reigning here. The Amerindian getting land, check the average 80,000 Amerindians and the volume of money they get from the treasury per capita. And now they're getting the
ancestral
the ecology. And your ancestors getting land by title? You nearly died to get a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, if this has not been a learning experience, and of course different views, it is what we should be listening to, what we should again be tolerating. Mr. Jailall Kissoon of the judiciary, almost
Thank
50
you very much
years,
indeed.
or more than 50 years, and Freddie Kissoon, no relationship to him except that he likes to question people. Have a safe night on the road. Make sure that you are preparing your pepper pot, garlic pork, because this weekend it's going to be Christmas weekend. We're going to be back with you on Wednesday. Be safe until then.